Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we are going to take a look at the Asus TUF GT502. So, the black one has been out a little while, but I've managed to get my hands on a white one. Woohoo! Obviously I like white cases, I like white hardware, it's just the thing I really enjoy. But just because it's white doesn't mean it's instantly going to get a thumbs up. So we do need to take a good and in-depth look at the case, and then also talk about the performance as well, because there's some things that we've noticed that you might find handy at home if you are to buy one. Now, the first thing I do need to say though is the case comes without any fans at all. I actually think this is probably the way manufacturers might move in the not too distant future, or at least do different SKUs where some have fans and some don't. Because performance builds, a lot of us end up swapping them out anyway. If you look through the plethora of very nice looking builds online, you'll see that there are an awful lot of people that do like to run Lanley fans within their cases because the design is just awesome. And I think that's kind of a nod and where the thought process was about bringing one to the market without any at all. But because of the way that I normally do my testing and I test them as they arrive, it obviously wouldn't have done so well. So Asus did send me some TF120 TUF RGB fans, which come with a little controller and everything as well, which I've used. But then because of the nature of the case, I've added some in the roof as well, which I'll talk to you about in more depth when we get to the performance results later. But for now at least, £160 or thereabouts in the UK, or 160 of your, as I would like to call it, Great British beer tokens. Let's see what you get for your money. So we always start at the top and at the front, and that would be on this because of the I/O, but I did want to show you the embossed section to the right of the I/O. That's kind of behind the motherboard tray area of the case. You can see that lovely tough kind of raised embossed section. I really like that because it's subtle but the shadows catch it and it's just great. This is going to get made to look even better if you have gaming lighting in your room like nano leaves or LEDs or something, because it will just pick out even better when you've got a bit of colour rather than just normal daylight as I have here. But you can see that you do have the power switch, a reset switch, a couple of USB 3.2 Gen 2s, you've got a USB-C, a lighting switch if you were to have it all hooked up. I haven't got that side of things hooked up on this yet or done, and I'll explain why in a sec, because effectively I'm just using a controller in the back. And then you do have a combined headphone and microphone slot. Something I do really like, and you can see I've got the lights on in the background, and that's the fact that the logo matches with it. So you just plug it into your motherboard or your controller or whatever. I've got this plugged into the controller. So effectively the logo on the case can be changed to match your system, or you can set it up independently. Like if you wanted your fans on white and you wanted that logo on red, that is possible. And I think that is a really nice touch. Now, it is a strange way to go about it. Sometimes the best way to show you the roof is just to tip the case on its front. And that's just because of angles and tripods and all of that kind of thing. So the roof does come with these grab rails and they are really strong. You can easily pick the case up with it, but it's too high and I'm just not tall enough to be able to show you them being used. But they are lovely, lovely and soft. I like the fact they're a bit grey so they won't get or look too dirty too quickly. But the reason why I'm unstrapping them is there is a section of the roof here that unpops. Now normally with these roof sections, if they have clips and stuff that you have to use, they are difficult to get in. But this is just so simple and so laid out so well that it is kind of hard to get it wrong. Now I've done loads of these sections on cameras in the past and they normally do, I get it wrong at least once when I'm trying to show how easy it is, but this is just like butter. The engineer that designed this genuinely needs a pat on the back because it is really, really easy and just simple, and it makes you feel like you're a god. A bit like when Hammond said he was a driving god. Anyway, So there is magnetic dust mesh in there if you end up having it as an intake. Inside, however, you can see the roof panel, which is removable. You can take the screws off down the bottom and you can pull it out to aid getting your radiator in there. Fits 3 120mm fans, which means a 360mm rad, or you can get up to a 280mm rad up there as well if you wanted to put 140 fans in. It does look like it should allow you to get 3 140s in, but it doesn't. There's also a really nice touch on the bottom of the metal pole over there, and you can actually see it through when the roof is on as well. So if I pop the roof on, and this is probably going to be the moment that it doesn't go on as it, oh, it does. Okay, it just goes to show you how well it's been done. Now I am going to have to move the case around, but you can still just see it through the gap. And again, that is a really nice touch. It did make me think though that the fact that they did it on one side and not on the other was a bit of a shame. But you know, you can't have everything. So, spinning around the case, you may be wondering, by the way, why I've not got more light on in the room. I've actually got the studio light pointing the other way, because if I point the light at the case, yes, it does highlight the case better, but then the camera just has an absolute meltdown because of how bright the white is and makes everything else dark. So this is actually the best way for us to have a look. Anyway, as you can see, glass panel in the front of the case. Plenty of views inside, uninterrupted, matched in with the side of the case as well. It is going to give you a really nice clear view of your system. When we spin all the way around, we are going to be looking more in depth inside, but we come around the back first and then we'll go into the main area. Round the back, 120mm exhaust, which can be moved up and down, no 140 support in the back. Extra ventilation up at the top should it be needed, not that you can really do anything about it. And then you access your IO screws. I still say PCI Express screws, but you know, that's because I'm old and weird. Via this little flap. It's pretty much just there to tidy things up and make it slightly more pleasing to the eye. Power supply here, it can only go one way, which is correct for the layout of the case, and you do get some more ventilation up here. Round the back, more ventilation, hard drive, power supply, and then this large section at the top, which you'll see what it's for in a second. But just notice that this section here is pointed upwards for a hard drive, and then your power supply is over here. Now, my power supply, as you'll see, is fairly well covered. We lose that kind of top section there, but it is being utilised from the bottom of it, so that's kind of nice. The hard drive section here is a bit weird, because I have to admit, the hard drive is removable, but if you mount your hard drive into this case, and the vent is all the way up here, then, because I'm just removing the screws, but it sits in this little tray, and then your mechanical hard drive is going to be behind it in a little cocoon in its own little cave away from the airflow here. Now, there are ways, I mean, you can mount hard drives on these back sections if you want. There's quite clearly mounts there for 2.5 inch hard drives. And these brackets can actually be removed as well. And that's a 360mm radiator mount back there if you want. And you can see from the other side, when we come round, you'll be able to see better. But it does mean that this hard drive section here kind of makes me feel like it should have been there, but then also that way around. So then you've actually got access to the hard drive itself. Now, there is no active cooling in reality here at all. the only place that you're going to get air movement is going to be from the power supply, and obviously the power supply sucks in here, is going to extract it out the back. I don't think you're going to get a lot of through room. So I kind of feel like if you stick, let's say you did have a mechanical hard drive in the back, you are going to just warm it up. There's not going to be a great deal of kind of convection going on there for natural heat to be able to radiate. I think it would have been much better to have had it that way round, so at least the hot air could have risen out of it and hopefully made its way out the back of the case. So I'm not entirely impressed with the way that they've done this. I think that it definitely did need more thought, and if they had have done it that way, it would have made so much more sense. But then we do come to this large mount at the top. So 4 screws, it is removable. You don't have to use it. Between the mount where you could put it and this side, which is the shortest amount of space, because there is a little angle there, so you've got more room this side that comes in, but this is the smallest distance. There's 60 millimeters of room there. So it does mean you could get a 30mm radiator and a 25mm fan in there, and it would be very snug. But obviously, there's not really a great place for the air to move at that point. So you'd have to remove this out, whether that means you've got a radiator here as well. So you've kind of got like radiator blowing into a radiator. I don't know. But without that, you've only got this amount of mesh at the back. So it is going to make life a little difficult. Now, the one thing I do need to say is there is a gap up there, and I'll spin you around and show you. You can see it over there. That does mean that you could get some hoses through. That does mean that you could get AI hoses through. But it does, I think it complicates matters a lot more than it should have done. This almost to me feels like they had some space up here and they didn't know what to do, so they've chucked a rad mount on there. And I'm just not sure about it. Maybe for one of you guys at home that wants like 1, 2, 3, 4 rads in, and you just want to go for broke or something, then cool. But yeah, I'm not completely sold by this. It does feel like they've put it here to just fill the space rather than for any logical use. Now, it is worth pointing out at this point that you could move the mounts from here for hard drives onto this cage. But the reason why I've gone into so much depth about it is the mounts over there are just 120mm mounts. This definitely supports 120s and 140s. So it does feel like it was intended, at least in some part, for fans. But if you did move your hard drive mounts from here and put them all the way over here, then we're back at the same problem that we had with the other hard drive lower down, in that these brackets are going to be on the outside and the hard drives are going to be on the inside, meaning that they cover the air vent up again. Now, if you've got a 2.5-inch solid state drive, that's not going to be a problem because they don't get hot. But if you're planning on using this for mechanical hard drives, and I know they are getting rare, but their mounts are there, so I have to talk about it. But if you're going to put mechanical hard drives in there, then you're going to be blocking up the airflow. So it kind of negates the point of there being a giant grill on the side. So they've put a grill there for rads. Rads is a bit confusing. If it's there to help air pass past your drives, then that gets covered up. It's all a little bit confusing. Now, I hadn't said, but you release the panels up here with these push buttons. It's actually a really nice mechanism, really nice and easy to use, and really nice and easy to refit. And as I remove that glass panel, which you can see doesn't have a tint, which I like very, very much because it's a white case, we do get a look at the inside. Now, we have already looked up here, but 360mm possible radiator. There are 120mm mounts. There are a total of 3 of them that you can get in there if you want. All of those panels can be removed. You can put hard drives on there. You can put reservoirs on there if you wanted. I think that may be part of the thought process. If you could put a big radiator there, you could put a distribution plate there technically, but if you did put a distribution plate there, the radiator on the other side, around here, if you were to utilise this, then that would become very blocked. So you do have to go careful with your hardware choices. Down the bottom, you have another big mount for fans. You can get 3 120s in there, up to 2 140s, mix it in and out, and the case, or the bottom I should say, does have a dust filter down there, so you can use it as a very clean intake. As I've already said, the roof is the same. 3 120s, 2 140s, mixes in and around that for you to do as you wish, and it could mean a very nice and clear airflow path from the bottom to the top. All very nice. You can also see the angular section here for the grommets above and at the side, which I really like. The only thing that I would have requested is that the grommets were mirrored at the bottom, just so that you had a cleaner path at the bottom of the motherboard tray. Personal preference, but the side ones and the roof ones are so very nice. I think it's just a shame that they missed out passing them to the bottom as well. Now, when it came to testing, we have the 3 TUF fans in, which are the fans that we changed the RPMs on. Now, we tested 1000 and then the max, which was 1850 RPM. The roof fans, I ended up putting those in just so that there was a little bit of helped convection in the roof, and they're quite slow, 1000 RPM, be quiet fans. So we left those just at 1000 RPM. But during the testing, what we always do is we set the graphics card to 60%. It's a 980, it's hot, it doesn't particularly matter. It's just there to indicate when we run games on it, does it get hot and does the case make a difference? We don't need to put a 4090 in there for it to be able to show us, and it has worked really well. The Hyper 212 Cooler Master, we set that to 9 volts with a reducer which goes straight into a SATA cable, just runs 9 volts. Again, the CPU fan doesn't change speed, so when the temperatures change, it's just the case doing that and the fan changes that we make. It just means it's a nice, clean and clinical way for us to be able to see how things change. And what did happen with this was quite weird, but I can explain why. In that, as we turned these fans up, the CPU got warmer. Weird, it was kind of felt like it was the wrong way round, and I would agree. But the graphics card absolutely loved it. And I do think that the airflow around here got kind of muddled as we were ramping the fan speeds up. And because obviously you get airflows, this would be the perfect case for us to start doing some smoke testing in. But if you were to be running this at home, then you would probably, in fact, I think it's probably time for me to turn the light around. If you were to be running this at home, I think you probably have an AIO or at least some water cooling where things would change accordingly. Whereas we had this weird, probably ended up with this weird vortex around here, and it just wasn't, it was only a few degrees, but it should have gone down and it went kind of up instead. I do think we could have fixed that though by not having the intakes in the bottom. If we'd had the intakes at the top, at the side, I think it would have suited the CPU better at that point. But this is a kind of strange config to test with, but it's the way we test all of the cases. Now, it may not look great in the graphs, but that's why I'm giving you a bigger kind of breakdown for you to kind of absorb it. The thing with this case is where it doesn't come with fans, it doesn't really matter what I do with it because you're going to do something different at home anyway. Now, unless you run an air cooler, I don't think you're going to have a problem. If you run an air cooler though, just do some tests at different fan speeds and with different locations as well. It's actually a nice job for a weekend warrior so that you can get in there and tune your build or your case layout accordingly. And I think we should all do that at least once. Anyway, a case like this, you definitely need to have a plan for it so that you can get the best from it. There's so many views and so many angles and so many places where you can put stuff. It really is a blank canvas for you to build something beautiful in. And that's not going to matter whether you've got an AIO, whether you plonk a white air cooler in it, or whether you go full bonkers mental with a custom water cooling loop. It's a great little case. Now that is kind of the word that I want to choose. It's a great little case, but it doesn't come with a little price tag. I think £160 for a case with no fans at all is very expensive, and it does make you look at other cases that are available which might have 3 RGB fans in it from the start that may be a little bit more than this, but even then sometimes if you go from 160 but you pay an extra £20 and then you get 3 RGB fans with it, the RGB fans can be north of £75 for 3, at least if they're decent ones. You do then start to question the value side of this case. And I do think that without the fans, for the size, it is quite expensive. But it does have the Asus logo on it, so there is an argument for the Asus tax. I do think though that with this kind of design, with all the glass in it, making it so expensive, kind of puts it up there with people that are going to want to spend quite a lot of money on a build anyway. And the problem with that is you're then putting it straight in the firing line of Lan Li, who I've got a funny feeling may have built this anyway, because there's lots of little aspects of this that make me think Lan Li, but also into the realms of things like the NZXT H9. And I would personally say this is probably one of this case's like biggest problems at the moment is the H9. And if they end up bringing a smaller version out, which I'd imagine isn't going to be that far away, it would be a no-brainer at that point. So I think it's in a very competitive market, and the fact that the price is so high without those fans, and other than the fact that you can carry it, you know, the glass signs and the airflow points and stuff like that, it's not that unique. So I think it's quite a tough sell. You're going to have to really want it. You're going to need a vision from it for you to get the best from it, and for you, in reality, to get your value out of it. But that is going to be one for you to decide. Is this the case for you? Or maybe are you going to go and look at some other options? I think with a case choice though, it's always very personal. And you do need to remember that. We need to have a vision, we need to know what hardware we want in it, and we need to, you know, have a direction that we're going in. But the case is normally the start of that. So put your thinking caps on. You need to do some working out, because with something that is so configurable like this, it's only you that can really decide. And hopefully my review will either have helped that. No, let's just leave it at that. Let's just say hopefully my review has helped that. But anyway, for now at least, this has been the tiniest one with the Asus TUF GT502 case review out. Thank you very much. I've never said that at the end before. That was weird, wasn't it? Yeah.